How I Met Your Mother. In all reality, I first saw my children's mother only from behind. I had just finished my junior year after the transfer to the new high school. Summer had finally arrived, and a few friends and I were sitting at a drugstore soda shop in London Mills, Illinois. We, of course, were talking about girls, and one of the guys asked, "Have you ever met Peggy?" I have no idea who she was. Of course, at that age, when you get a collection of young boys who simply live to embarrass, I couldn't trust this was a viable question. Acting totally unimpressed, I simply said no. It just so happened that Peggy was working as a waitress that day, and they pointed her out to me. The place was packed, and all I could see was her butt, outlined in a yellow A-line polka dot dress, as she was taking an order at another table. But under no circumstance could I act like I was interested. Thankfully, I never saw her face until a few months later. That dress has always stuck in my mind. Peggy entered high school as a sophomore when I was a senior. On the first day of school that fall, all the guys were sitting outside on the steps waiting to see the new girls as they got off the bus. She and her other friends from London Mills got off the bus together. I finally saw her face and thought she was cute. She looked like somebody I would like to date, but that would require talking to her. Talking to girls was something that until my senior year was very scary to me. All kinds of thoughts ran through my mind, and any plan to open a conversation never surfaced. It wasn't until we had our football banquet at the end of football season that I had another opportunity. When my father and I showed up at the banquet, the only seat left was right next to this sophomore cheerleader, whom I only knew as Peggy. And that was only because it said Peggy on her cheerleading outfit. Summing up all the courage I could muster, I sat down next to her. Of course, there were other girls, and they were all talking. Being bashful, if I was ever to make any kind of inroad, I knew I needed to break the ice and make an impression. About that time, they started passing around the baked potatoes. I noticed no one was looking as I was handed the basket. So I took one for myself, and I took another and placed it carefully inside her purse, located on the floor between us. I never said anything, and she didn't notice. As the evening went on, I was gradually brought into the conversation, and we were all making small talk. It was pleasant, and we were all getting along very well. That's when I decided to ask her in front of her friends if she didn't get enough food at home. She looked at me like I was crazy, and with a rather puzzled look and somewhat disgusted, she said, "Well, yes." "Then why do you have a baked potato in your purse?" I asked as she looked down to pick up her purse. That's when she found the baked potato. We all had a good laugh, and the ice was finally broken. That was my first actual verbal encounter with your mom. She was not impressed. We did go out on a date later that winter. She only lived a few blocks from the school where we had attended a sock hop in the gym together. The wind was still, and it was snowing lightly, and we left to walk home. It was one of those nights that make you want to walk in the snow forever, but she and I walked straight to her house. At the end of the evening, I asked her if I could call again. She told me that would not be necessary, thanked me for a good time, and sent me on my way. At that time, I really didn't care. It was obvious she didn't either. In all honesty, it got me off the hook trying to make her small talk. During the rest of the year, we had occasions to be around each other socially. She was usually with other girls, and once she was with another guy when we were on a double date. I dated other girls throughout the year and had put her out of my mind. It was obvious she had put me out of hers, if I was ever in it. It wasn't until after my high school graduation that we talked again. During my senior year, I had a steady girlfriend who lived in an adjoining town. She and I had just broken up a couple of weeks after graduation, and I was driving home when I decided to go through London Mills. I spotted Peggy sitting outside on a step on her grandma's house. It was warm, and I was looking for conversation. I stopped, and we visited for some time. It was casual, and we got along well. The next day was the 4th of July. There were going to be fireworks in Galesburg, so I asked her if she would like to go. She said yes, and we had a picnic next to the lake to watch the fireworks. Arriving at Lake Story late in the afternoon, the park was crowded, but I knew of a rather remote spot. It was a little out of the way, yet had a clear view of the lake. That's where we could see the fireworks without standing in a herd of people. There were a few other couples who knew about the space, so we joined them with our blankets and picnic baskets. We ate, laughed, and watched the fireworks. It was the first time I felt comfortable with a girl. She knew where I came from and why, no secrets, no surprises. She was not a person who would put up with any of my BS. The date was a success to this point. At the end of the evening, we gathered our stuff and loaded it in the car. I had a new car, a 1965 yellow Ford Falcon. It was a muscle car, and I used the muscle quite often. This was 1965, and things were a little different, as the police had a lot more power to do their job. On the way out of the remote spot, I discovered there was a police car located at the end of the lane, and they stopped my car. They came to the window and asked Peggy if she was okay, and to get out and go sit in their police car. She did as she was told. The other policeman asked me a few questions, nothing special. Did you have a good time? Where are you going from here? She was asked some pointed questions while sitting in the police car, all based on whether she felt comfortable being with me in that remote location. She told them everything was fine and all went well. With that, they let us go. The first and only time I could recollect she ever spoke to a policeman in what could have been a bad situation. Overall, except for the police scare, the date went well. We laughed, we had a good time. Sitting outside her grandma's house, we ended the night by challenging each other to a contest to see how many pieces of bread we could stuff into our mouths. I'll never tell you who won. From that day forward, we never dated anyone else and were married 2 years later. That was eons ago. I still feel as much in love with her today as I did on the 4th of July, 1965.